Welcome to Resiliency Web Chats, conversations with individuals in the UMD community about moments in their lives that required resilience. Together, we learn about the strategies they use to stay strong and move forward in challenging times. I am beyond thrilled and I'm over the moon to be chatting today with Kimberly Swinney. I've known Kimberly since the early 2010s. She was student body president at UMD in 2013-14. And also worked in the Kirby Student Center. So I got to know Kimberly very well. And I'm just beyond honored to have her on our web chat today. She is an outstanding human. She was an outstanding student and student leader. And I'm just really proud to say she's a very successful student affairs practitioner today, a student affairs professional. And I want to get on the record to say I fully expect her to have my job one day if she wants it. So this is just a real thrill. So good afternoon, Kimberly. How are you?
I'm good, Dr. Irwin. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm honored.
So let's share with our listeners, our viewers, what your role is and where you work.
Yes. So I'm the Assistant Director for Student Activities and Leadership at Concordia University in St. Paul, Minnesota. I've been here for 5 years full-time, and then I did 2 years as a grad intern while I did my work at the University of St. Thomas right after I finished my degree at UMD in 2014.
So let's start with learning more about you. What brought you to UMD, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up in northern Minnesota on the Iron Range, so just an hour north of Duluth. And Duluth was kind of our fun escape. It's where we did school clothes shopping. It's where we went for short vacations. And I believe at the age of 12, my cousin and I knew we wanted to go to UMD. I don't know what it was, if it was just a natural fit, because people on Iron Range talked a lot about UMD and sports, and I just was automatically drawn to it. And then when the conversations about selecting colleges happened, it was just a no-brainer. I knew I didn't want to go too far away from home, but I didn't want to stay at home. And I considered Scholastica, and at the end of the day, I never ended up submitting that application. I just knew that UMD was my home, and for some reason felt very called to come there, and I don't regret it at all. And it holds a very special place in my heart. It brought me many things that carry with me today.
Let's talk about that a little bit. The role of student body president is a demanding one. And in addition, you worked in Kirby Student Center, the heart of the campus. Plus you had a demanding academic schedule. So what was that experience like? And when you think back to it, what were some of the challenges you faced, and what strategies did you use to face those issues that you confronted?
It's a great question. And it started out clunky, to be honest. I remember attending Bulldog Welcome Weekend as a first-year student, and I came from a family who didn't understand the 4-year degree system or financial aid. And so that was a barrier in and of itself. And I remember sitting at Bulldog Welcome Weekend at Convocation and watching Victor, who is the current student body president, give his speech. And I remember being there by myself, surrounded by a bunch of strangers. And I was like, it would be so cool to be that person. It was this very specific memory I have of being jealous, but inspired by this individual who got to speak in front of all these people, because that's who I was in high school. And I decided I wasn't going to be involved at all. And that was the worst thing for me, because I lost a sense of belonging and community and how to navigate resources that I didn't understand. And so I started to do not super great in my classes, was a business major. And then I tried out for cheerleading twice and I didn't make it. And I had never been told no for sports in my entire life because I came from a small school. And so I couldn't figure out where I belonged. And so then I got involved with Bulldog Welcome Weekend because I was I felt connected that week. That's where I met people and I saw leaders who I really enjoyed being around. So I'm why don't I try to be one of them? And that kind of folded into getting involved in student government, finding resources and people who could help me navigate those resources so that I could walk into an office in Kirby Student Center and be I don't understand this financial aid thing, or I don't understand this hold, or I'm getting a D in accounting and I'm not enjoying these classes at all. And receiving affirmation that it was okay to change my major to communication, because I didn't receive that information in high school. I actually received the opposite feedback from a instructor in high school. And so it was through those experiences that it kind of led me to keep pushing through in student government. It kind of moved in and moved up fast, just because I was highly motivated, and I kind of finally found where I was supposed to be. And I was like, these are my people. And I think navigating that professional persona while also still being a college student was, I think, the first major challenge for me, is remembering that I was a reflection of the university and trying to I would say educate my friends on what that meant. And that was a quick lesson to learn about what that looked like in your friends who were going for the more traditional college experience. But I don't regret it. I learned a lot of really valuable career skills. I got to sit on committees with staff and faculty, and have really important conversations about program prioritization and staff having a voice and being heard on college campuses. And that was a really unique experience to be a part of and to be an advocate for as a student, because now as a practitioner myself, I am like, why didn't I speak up more, or have push boundaries a little bit further? Because I was a student, I had that ability to, because now I'm the one that's empowering those students to push boundaries and speak up and advocate for change. And it's really cool to watch that kind of come full circle for me.
This is a great answer. I'm making a couple of notes because I'm going to sum up at the end what I'm learning. COVID-19, and I think our society has been so challenged. And I think our industry, higher education, has also just faced enormous challenges. When I think about what students have missed in terms of connecting, and you described this so well in your exploration of UMD and your coming of age at UMD, where you found your people and you found your place. That's been so much harder for our first and second year students. So what have you learned about your own resilience as you have supported students through the last almost 2 years now?
Absolutely. I learned how to take care of myself. I think we are all forced to slow down and reflect on what is important, and that's our health and our family and our safety and our security. And it's been almost a full year now where I finally addressed my anxiety. I always identified as a human with anxiety, but I never did anything about it. And I think back to my college experience and how much more successful I would have been if I would have been in therapy and on medication. But I kind of just denied that. I compartmentalized and was like, it's fine. I'm going to just keep powering through it, and sometimes cry in a staff member's office and then keep going at it. But with COVID, I kind of was forced to self-reflect on, is this sustainable? And is it helpful for me going into a marriage? I just got married in July, and knowing that that was coming, I wanted to be the best version of myself for myself and for my partner. And so I prioritized that and got on medication and went to therapy, and it changed my world. And I've gotten on a workout routine that has helped not only physically, but my mental health incredibly. I found a community there. I love people, clearly. And so I always have to find space for community. In a professional perspective, when your job is so student facing, and my daily interactions are running leadership programs for students, or orienting students to campus, or helping students build community through clubs and organizations. At first, I was really worried about, would I be furloughed? Would I be laid off? Would my position be eliminated? And that wasn't any direct word that we were getting from our institution. We're actually in a really strong place as an institution, thankfully. But it was just when your job is about building community on campus, I was like, what does that look like now? And so I was really forced to lean into creativity in new ways, focus on assessment, focus on developing curriculum in this newfound time that I had, and also finding ways to connect with students online. without putting that burden on my students to be the community builder. So I would create the space and then invite them in. And it was really great. I looked forward to my Tuesday nights doing Kahoot with them because I had like kind of a consistent group that would come on. And I found out like what worked for us. And a lot of those things I've remained into my practice. I do club leadership training on Zoom because they don't need to come to campus at 7:30 p.m. for a half-hour training when they can all connect on Zoom and I can show them my screen and it's productive. I do a lot of student interviews on Zoom because it's productive. They can plug in anywhere because again, 15 minutes for an interview and then I send them back home. Like, is it worth their gas money to come all the way to campus for that when I can get just as much from them from a Zoom interview? And we also created a track of my leadership program so that we can reach our online students. It can be accommodating for my full-time professionals, my working students, my parents, those who live in different states. So it's forced me to be a better professional in serving my students and knowing that community doesn't need to be physically on campus. It can be anywhere as long as you're building those connections. And then I think that has made us better professionals and practitioners and event planners on campus as well. So we learned what was important and what wasn't. And I think my biggest lesson was, how am I serving students the best possible way? Is this process or policy or procedure created to teach them something, to develop a skill that they're going to need in their future? Is it something that is helping me in my job or helping them in theirs? If not, get rid of it. It's not worth my time or energy, and it's not serving anyone. So I think it took a lot of time for me to reflect and be like, let's not create processes just to have processes, or penalties in my first year seminar class, just because that's what I've always done. Like, is that serving students or students learning anything from that? And if not, I'm getting rid of it.
That's just an amazing answer. You know, your passion for what you do comes through really clearly, and that's really inspiring. I want to brag on you just a minute. We spent some time together at NASPA in Los Angeles when we could be at an in-person conference, and you presented in this area. It was pre-COVID, but you were already thinking about assessment and how best to help students articulate what they're learning outside the classroom. So that foundation, I think, is part of your passion and seemed to lead into what you discovered even further in COVID. So that's really cool. That's really exciting. Yeah. So my last question, Kimberly, is around what you've observed in your students. I think people like you and me find a great deal of inspiration and hope, and sort of the reason to come to work every day is definitely, and not sort of, it's definitely a part of our work with students. So what have you seen in your students in terms of resilience? What has inspired you?
They're incredible. I could go on and on about the stories I've heard, what I've watched my students walk through. Obviously, those are their stories to tell, but I'm continuously impressed and motivated and inspired by the things my students have overcome to get onto this campus, complete degrees, and then go on and do incredible things. One of my recent grads, she was just FaceTiming her mom with Joe Biden because she's working for Angie Craig, and he was visiting in their district. And so seeing on Instagram her with the president of the United States was just like incredible to see her being so successful. And I knew she would. She was actually our former student body president here as well. So again, not surprising at all. She's doing great things. I teach our first year seminar, similar to UMD seminar, for folks who participated in that. And one of their first major assignments is to write out their story. We relate it back to a book called On Fire by John O'Leary. And his book is about resiliency and how he's overcome being burned on 99% of his body at the age of 9, and all the stories that kind of have impacted his life since then. And so we have our students talk about these inflection points in their lives that got them to where they're at today. And this is in October of their first year on campus, and most of them are 18 years old. And so to ask them to like summarize their story, I'm blown away about the things they've gone through in 18, 19 short years of life. They have had to be brave. They've had to be strong. They've had to persevere. They've had to be representatives of their family, of their culture, overcome abuse or addiction or money issues, like just so many things. And every year that I read these stories, I'm just blown away. And that's kind of where that big aha moment of like late attendance policy. Our students are going through a lot of stuff. Do I need to mark them down that much because they turned in something late? I don't know what they're going through. And I create a space that they can share if something's going on. I always tell them, don't struggle in silence, that there's someone here on this campus here to walk with you, support you. I will bring you wherever you need to go. But some of them don't know who those people are yet. And so I've just been really inspired by them getting to this point. I know I went through a lot of things growing up when it came to mental health and addiction, but some of their stories are just unbelievable and beautiful, and they're just strong, incredible humans, and they keep me motivated to be here each and every day and show up and serve them to the best of my ability. And that relates to me going to therapy and me being on medication and me going and working out and me showing them what healthy boundaries with work looks like. And that sometimes I'm not available to talk, but that I will make as much space as possible the next day or whatever it may be. And that's been really important. I think also when we're talking about resiliency, mental health is just a huge part of that. And I think especially Generation Z is just like an incredibly fascinating, fun, unique generation. And they're so much more willing to talk about their mental health and normalize it. Like it's just normal conversation now. And we're having a lot of conversations on our campus about mental health and push for resources or push for normalizing the conversation or panels talking about their mental health or events. I know our soccer team has partnered with UMD's soccer team with the hidden opponent and making sure that they have a soccer game dedicated to mental health and suicide prevention awareness. And so I think it's just wonderful to see them talk about taking care of themselves in healthy, sustainable ways. And it's just very beautiful to watch happen because it's very different than even my generation of friends. I didn't realize until I think the last 5 years, I'm like, wow, I feel like everyone has anxiety now. We were all just like struggling in silence and like couldn't open up about it as often.
I just really love that answer. And I think it reminds me that in our field, supporting student mental health is not just counseling, that it's a more holistic look at different aspects of a student affairs organization. It's about what a leadership program looks like and what kind of expectations occur within that support students and their mental health. Same with a recreational program or a housing program. So again, it's wonderful to hear you reflect on that.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being here today. I want to just summarize some of what I've heard today and have you sort of validate whether I'm hearing your story in the right way. What I'm hearing is the things that have worked for you are first to sort of put yourself out there and get involved. It seemed like you stepped outside your comfort zone to a degree when you came to UMD. And I think the self-awareness you demonstrated when you were able to say, this isn't working, so I'm going to try something different. And in doing that, you achieved, I think, the second resiliency strategy, which is to find your place and find your people. Maybe the latter being the most important thing, is finding those people that can help you have a sense of belonging, which is much more than about place. So I appreciated hearing that a lot. I think you also have demonstrated an openness that leads to resiliency. I think when you're open to new experiences, opening to new people, opening to learning about yourself, you tend to be more resilient when you face a challenge. So I heard that really clearly. I so loved and appreciated your vulnerability and talking about self-care and your own experiences around discovering what supports your own mental health. And then not only being open to that and learning about that, but then owning it and modeling it. I think that's a way to be resilient too, to understand what you need to do to take care of yourself leads to resilience. Most definitely. And then finally, I would say, I think you are somebody who is able to articulate perspective as a component of your own resilience. Having perspective is so critical because you are able to step out of this being just about you or just about any one issue into the bigger picture, which I think lends to resilience as well. So that's what I heard today. Did I capture Kimberly Sweeney?
Yes. Thank you. That
yes.
was perfectly summarized, and I appreciate the perspective comment. That was like an aha moment for me. Thank you.
It's everything. Honestly, I think in my own experience of the last year and a half, 2 years, I've sometimes had to say, get over yourself and gain some perspective on the bigger picture or what others are experiencing, right? To get out of my own zone of how I'm experiencing things to the bigger picture. And I love that you center students in your work. That is, I think, also perspective.
That was the model to me when I was a student. So I learned from folks like you and the staff in Kirby and students in transition that's why we were here to do what we do.
It's really interesting for our viewers. Those of us who come to this job, to this profession, don't start at our first day of college thinking we're going to be an assistant director or a director or a vice chancellor, whatever. But that's the thing that captivates us, that we could actually have a job, that we spend our time focusing on helping students complete their educational dreams. Holy moly. I mean, is there anything better?
No. And I spent every day with you all. And finally, Dr. Smythe was like, why don't you do what Dr. Irwin and I do? Yeah, that sounds like something I would love to do. And I couldn't imagine doing anything different. It's definitely what I feel like my purpose is, especially right now. And that's an incredibly wonderful gift to have.
For me, it was an RA who tapped me on the shoulder. He was in a master's program, a student affairs master's program, who said, have you thought about this? So it's been a great journey getting to meet people like you. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Wish you all the best. And I hope you stay long connected with your alma mater, because we're UMD proud of you for sure.
Well, thank you. I always will.